Tonight, the sting in the tail of Alfred sends parts of Brisbane underwater and a city into lockdown to the north. Inside, the mass emergency to save our ADF heroes from their upturned trucks in the flood zone. Lismore breathes a huge sigh of relief, but its neighbours remain on edge. Flights from Sydney to Brisbane resume, but it's a rough ride clearing the backlog. A landslide Labor victory in our west fuels high hopes of a repeat federally. Plus a disastrous coaching debut for Jason Riles as Parramatta is smashed by the Storm in Melbourne.
This is 9 News with Peter Overton.
Good evening. For days, southeast Queensland has been on edge. But just when it seemed the threat of ex-tropical cyclone Alfred had passed, wild winds and heavy rain have battered Brisbane. As we go to air tonight, a flood emergency is unfolding. Homes beginning to go under in the capital and further north in Hervey Bay.
After days of holding its breath, Brisbane hit hard. The aftermath of Alfred, mightier than the moment he struck. Relentless rain, the sheer amount of water, too much for this city to handle. Low-lying riverside suburbs now going under.
Many people aren't aware of how quickly the flooding comes up and just the sheer volume, speed and the debris, so it's quite dangerous for everyone.
The worst case scenario that we have here right now.
As the system continues to come across the coast, there is no doubt that it continues to pack a punch.
3 hours north on Queensland's Fraser Coast, another unfolding emergency. Hervey Bay copping 320 millimetres in a matter of hours this morning, turning yards into waterfalls, leaving locals of all types searching for higher ground. The flooded forget it message still being ignored. In Brisbane's north, buckling roofs. Residents of this Brighton home evacuating 10 minutes earlier.
Oh my God!
A tin roof in Redcliffe hanging like a piece of wet washing. Gaping holes left in homes as 80-kilometre-an-hour wind gusts battered the Bayside township.
It is horrendous. There are trees down everywhere. There's just debris everywhere. There's roofs off. Yeah, pretty bad.
Because it's moving so slowly, there's going to be a lot more of this.
The Moreton Bay region reeling from a rough night. The winds rage, cutting off roads, blanketing many with debris, as the wild weather continues to eat away at some of our country's most iconic beaches. Alfred's build-up over the past week, putting Brisbane residents under a false pretence.
We did hear the tree fall down. We were watching TV. I think we got a little complacent. We sort of prepared on Friday night for a big storm to come through and nothing really happened.
Today, a Sunday morning clean-up. But as the wind drops, the rain persists. 24 hours ago, it felt like Alfred was a fizzer, but now these streets are filling up fast and the biggest challenge could lie ahead. Usually dry reserves, looking more like rivers. Residents now getting out. Footy fields turn to pools. A torrent at Mount Tamborine. On the Gold Coast and further inland, floodwaters fast becoming a sport of sorts. Others won't be out on the water anytime soon. But there were small wins today as power returned for some. Over 300,000 properties, though, still remain in the dark. At Brisbane Airport, passenger flights have resumed, but flying conditions remain far from ideal, and Alfred isn't done yet.
I want to assure Queenslanders that our resolve to make sure that this great state gets back on its feet will be unwavering, and we'll be here for the long haul.
In Brisbane, Alison Petrowski, 9 News.
Well, let's go to Ali now at Greenslope, south of Brisbane. Ali, the rain is certainly still pelting down there.
Yeah, it really is still coming down, Pete, and that means that there is still a high risk of flash flooding, and that is what has unfolded here in the suburbs of Greenslopes. A creek has overflowed, and that has meant that this park has turned into a running river, a raging river, moving very quickly. I'm going to see if Hamish my cameraman can pan in. We've actually got kids out there who are bodyboarding out in the creek/river. That is not something we would recommend in these conditions, Pete. A flood watch as we go to air is still in effect for Brisbane and also for Ipswich. Major flood warnings are in play as well, Pete, for Bremer and Logan rivers. Brizzy absolutely soaked today, Pete. 150 millimetres of rain has fallen since 9 a.m. and remember, it is only 5 p.m. here right now. Right now, Brisbane is on track to have 3 months' worth of rain in just a 24-hour period. Pete?
Ali, thank you. 2 of our soldiers are tonight still in hospital being treated for serious injuries after they were trapped in a military truck which rolled several times in the state's north. The troops were helping with the flood emergency near Lismore when the disaster unfolded, prompting a major emergency response.
In a paddock south of Lismore, a Defence Force truck lays on its side. Another, just metres away, overturned on Tregeagle Road. The 2 Rheinmetallman military vehicles had been travelling in convoy on their way to help the SES with a fallen tree. Sydney Morning Herald chief photographer Nick Moyer among the first to come across the scene.
Coming up the hill and saw this, giant thing up on the road, and I actually stopped, got out my long lens to have a look, and it was like, holy crap. So I got out and started going up to see what was going on, and immediately, there was only a couple of medics or something, and it was obvious that there was a lot of injuries.
The crash triggered a mass emergency. 32 soldiers were inside the vehicles, 13 seriously injured, the worst suffering spinal injuries and broken bones. All were taken to hospitals in Lismore, Tweed Heads, Ballina and Byron Bay.
In my 32 years of policing, it's the largest accident scene that I've been to.
The circumstances surrounding the crash are now under investigation. Police say the first truck lost control on the wet and winding road, rolling several times before ending up in the paddock. The vehicle following directly behind locked up and tipped as the driver tried to avoid a collision.
I can say that all of them were wearing seatbelts, and there is a 4-point harness in the rear of those large trucks, and certainly the injuries were lessened because all of them were wearing those seatbelts.
The conditions are treacherous, and if you don't know the roads and if you're not used to driving on these narrow country roads, it can happen to anyone.
This afternoon, the Prime Minister visited Gallipoli Barracks in Brisbane, where the injured soldiers are based.
Hey guys, how you going? Yeah. Hey, thanks for your service.
Anthony Albanese offering his sympathy to their comrades.
I know that you'll all be feeling it as well with the incident last night, and we certainly hope and pray for full recovery for those involved. That will make it very tough because I know that you all regard each other as family.
At the time of yesterday's crash, the military temporarily grounded their fleet of vehicles. Today, they're back out with personnel helping this region, but there is an investigation into these trucks and if they have any mechanical issues. While the crash is an unfortunate incident in the ongoing emergency, Premier Chris Minns today reinforced how crucial defence support is in times of need.
The bottom line is we need you. They do an incredible job and we're very grateful for it.
In Lismore, James Wilson, 9 News.
James Wilson is at Lismore Hospital for us tonight. James, you have an update on the injured diggers.
Pete, news is improving here in the Northern Rivers tonight following that horrific crash. Just 12 ADF personnel remain in hospital. 2 of them are in a serious condition behind me at Lismore Hospital. Around 2 hours ago, we saw crash investigators from police arrive. They spent around 45 minutes inside interviewing those injured, trying to figure out exactly what caused this crash. And throughout the day, there's been a steady stream of troops going in, checking in on their mates, their colleagues, their friends. And in some news just in as well, we're hearing that Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will also make the trip down to Lismore tomorrow to check in on those troops. Pete.
James Wilson in Lismore, thank you. They've been on edge for nearly a week, but tonight residents in Lismore are breathing a sigh of relief as the evacuation order for the town's CBD is lifted. As water levels subside, so too do fears of a repeat of the 2022 flood disaster. But the Premier is warning New South Wales is not out of danger just yet.
In Billynudgel, 15 minutes from Byron Bay, locals were told to leave 3 days ago.
Yeah, maybe someone wanted to get rid of their BMW, I don't know.
And while the rising water caught out some, Larry didn't want to go.
Oh no, it's only a little flood.
His home is surrounded, his umbrella's seen better days, but he's riding this one out. you're trying to get some groceries, you have to park your car, walk across the water, and you're trying to borrow someone's vehicle, is that right?
Yeah, I was going to grab somebody's car, yeah.
Just to stock up.
Buy him a beer and I'll be right.
But the warnings are still current and they're not always being heeded, whether that be from rising rivers.
Do not drive through flooded waters. It absolutely astounds me that this still occurs.
Or swirling seas. Two backpackers risking it all at Byron Bay's main beach. Within seconds, they were in trouble and onlookers knew it, calling police. They're just down at the bottom of those stairs there. They re-emerge 300 metres from where they jumped in, greeted by authorities, and their reasoning defies belief. To swim a little bit. To swim a little bit? Yeah. The wind hasn't eased in Byron, especially at the country's most easterly point. And it's here at Cape Byron, underneath the iconic lighthouse, where the winds have been the strongest and most consistent anywhere over the past week. Today, gusts were recorded at 111 kilometres per hour. Inland at Lismore, which bore the brunt of the 2022 flood disaster, the news residents have been hoping for.
The advice now is to return with caution for Lismore CBD.
The Wilsons River peaking at 9.3 metres, just above the moderate flood level. Not enough to break the levee and now slowly falling. But other towns are not yet out of the danger. The Clarence River at Grafton rising tonight, the rowing club already submerged.
Our main concern is just how much rainfall we get in the catchment because the Clarence River has such a large catchment.
Further south in Kurikai, the anxiety from Alfred has taken hold.
I'm worried sick. I just don't like floods.
29 flood rescues have been carried out across the state, and despite some examples of dangerous behaviour, there's plenty of praise for these resilient communities.
There are many, many people, literally thousands, that have left their family and their friends to go and help the people of the Northern Rivers. So if you see them in the street, thank them on behalf of New South Wales.
Banding together to see out this storm. Alex Ike, 9 News.
Alex joins me now from Ballynudgel. Alex, what are the conditions like as we come to you this evening?
Well, Pete, the wind and the rain continues. We are nearing 150 millimetres here in the Byron Bay region over the last 4 days. There is a fresh fear tonight, localised and flash flooding. You can see it's already claimed 3 cars here in Ballynudgel, and there are others we've seen across the course of today. There is quite a bit of flooding on streets as well. Roads have been closed, and you'll see, Pete, a sign there, the Pocket Public School. It is closed tomorrow, so too every other school in this hit zone in the northeastern corner of New South Wales. That call came through late this afternoon, and Pete, you can get a full list of these closed schools on the Department of Education website.
Thank you, Alex. Tributes today for the 61-year-old man who died in floodwaters in Meagan, northeast of Dorrigo. Authorities say Tom Cook was driving across the Wild Cattle Bridge on Friday when his ute was swept away. He managed to cling onto a tree but couldn't hold on.
I rang my neighbour on the other side, my good friend, and just checked that they were okay. And then she called me back about half an hour later and said it was Tom. And that was just shock. He had a dog that he loved. He loved motorcycles. Just a kind of, typical Aussie friendly guy.
Tom's body was recovered yesterday afternoon. Thousands of travellers have been left stranded with flights cancelled because of ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. 9 News reporter Elizabeth Bryan is at the airport for us this evening. Lizzie, are flights underway again?
Well, Pete, in good news for travellers, yes, domestic airlines have resumed flights to Brisbane, the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast and Ballina airports, with the exception of Hervey Bay Airport, which is tonight still flooded. If we want to take a look at the big board, as you can see, the departures were a sea of cancellations this morning, but are now looking normal. And there's just a handful of cancellation of arrivals from Queensland. But after the airports have been closed for a number of days, customers can still expect a backlog. Qantas today has put on an extra plane from Sydney to Brisbane to help move tens of thousands of people. Pete?
Lizzie, thank you. A landslide for Labor in the West Australian election. Its third win in a row, providing some hope for Anthony Albanese. Premier Roger Cook moving out of Mark McGowan's shadow. Federal leaders tonight are eyeing how the West was won.
For most of Australia, Roger Cook was unrecognisable 2 years ago. In Western Australia, he's now unassailable.
Friends, enjoy tonight, because we get back to work tomorrow.
Labor's new man with a new mandate. Nearly 58% of the statewide two-party preferred vote. The swing away from Labor, but more than enough for a third thumping majority in a row.
This is the second largest victory in history in Western Australia.
Liberal hopeful and Lord Mayor Basil Zemplis set to scrape into his once safe seat, setting up another potential leadership showdown.
It is fair to say it's not the result that we hoped for.
It is so critical that we'd have at least two viable governments, and we're a long way off that now, so disastrous result.
The former Premier now calling for a merger of the Liberal and National parties in the West.
It's a big underperformance. You asked me for my perspective, though, and I'm looking where the opportunities are, and I'm saying it's in the mortgage belt where people are really doing it tough.
They weren't sitting there with baseball bats for Roger Cook. I think the reality is he's been able to distance himself from federal Labor.
Any distance between the 31st Premier and 31st Prime Minister set to evaporate, with WA vital for the upcoming federal election.
Roger's been a friend of mine for a long period of time, since before either of us were in politics.
With the Prime Minister's own re-election bid on hold, a new factor looms after a late-night call with British PM Sir Keir Starmer. Assembling a new coalition of the willing to help in Ukraine, Australia open to the prospect of peacekeeping troops, but still a long way from a commitment.
There is no mission at this point in time. You can't have a peacekeeping mission without having peace.
Australia will join allies at a meeting in Paris on Tuesday. Charles Croucher, 9 News.
More than 1,000 people have now been killed in clashes between Syrian security forces and gunmen loyal to former President Bashar Assad. A war monitor is reporting more than 745 civilians are among the dead, including women and children from the Alawite minority. Many of those have family in Australia.
They're living in fear, they're living not knowing each day whether or not they're going to survive. And we can't do anything about it. It's horrific. It's a horrific feeling.
Australia's Alawite community is now planning to write to Prime Minister Albanese, urging him to condemn what has been labelled a massacre. Pope Francis is showing a good response to treatment, according to the Vatican, with doctors even recording a slight improvement in his condition. The 88-year-old pontiff has been in hospital for more than 3 weeks with a severe respiratory infection. The latest update from the press office adding that the Pope was able to alternate rest with work activities. The St George Illawarra Dragons have condemned the actions of a fan after he was filmed buying a meat pie and throwing it at a group of Bulldog supporters during yesterday's game at Cogra. Officers spoke with the man at the game, but no arrests have been made. The Dragons have said in a statement the club apologises to the Bulldogs fans and will work with the NRL in relation to any breaches to the Spectator Code of Conduct. Police are still investigating. Weather is the topic of our news today. Let's say good evening to Amber.
Good evening to you, Pete. Well, after being warned about torrential rain this weekend in Sydney, it didn't eventuate. Despite some grey skies and a few sprinkles, we also enjoyed breaks of sunshine today. The rain was less than a millimetre and only fell in a few suburbs, including Bankstown, Parramatta, Castle Hill and Mossman. And despite being more than a week into autumn, temperatures are staying very summery after a humid night. The city reached a top of 28 this afternoon. That is 3 degrees warmer than average. Our west also climbing to 28 degrees, helped along by the afternoon sunshine. We are expecting more rain over the next few days, along with some very hot weather as well before the end of the week. I'll be back with the full forecast a little later, Pete.
Amber, thank you. Next in 9 News, teens charged over a sickening car park ambush at Hornsby Westfield. One man stabbed. A driver's crash and run at Granville, and he certainly left a costly calling card. Vladimir Putin's message to women, why he says they're helping Russia win the war. A state of emergency for New York, parts of Long Island burn. And tough as nails Trish. See how the Aussie Nan sorts out a 2-metre snake latched onto her hand. 4 teenagers have been charged after a man was stabbed at Hornsby Westfield yesterday afternoon. The 21-year-old was walking through the car park with the 27-year-old woman when they were allegedly ambushed by the group around 3 p.m. The man was allegedly stabbed in the leg and was taken to Royal North Shore Hospital in a stable condition. 2 boys aged 14 and 16 were today granted bail. One 15-year-old boy was refused bail, while a 15-year-old girl will face court later this month. CCTV has captured the moment a Volkswagen Golf crashed into the front of a home at Granville yesterday. The hatchback lost control along Woodville Road just before 1 p.m, hitting a road sign and a light pole before smashing into a brick fence. The driver is seen getting out and making a call before he eventually walks away from the scene towards Parramatta. More than 20 people have been killed and dozens more injured in one of the deadliest days for civilians in Ukraine this year. The Russian attacks follow the US pausing of military aid and intelligence sharing with Kyiv and threatening sanctions on Russia.
Explosions ring out. Another devastating attack on Ukraine. Russian strikes in the embattled Donetsk region, killing more than 20 civilians and injuring dozens of others, including several children. The attack coming just days after the US halted its military aid and intelligence sharing. Ukraine's president saying, literally every day Russia proves with its cruelty that nothing has changed. They are thinking not about how to end the war, but about how to destroy and capture more. Ukraine and Russia celebrating International Women's Day with their own messages, including this from Vladimir Putin. Your love, loyalty gives strength to our soldiers, strengthen their spirit and unwavering faith that the truth and therefore victory is on our side. President Zelensky will head to Saudi Arabia next week to meet with the Crown Prince before Ukrainian and US officials begin talks about ending the war. In Washington, D.C. and Kyiv, protesters took to the streets urging the US not to abandon Ukraine as a soldier expressed disappointment. Donald Trump wants the war to end, but first, a round of golf. In London, Hannah Sinclair, 9 News.
A state of emergency has been declared in part of Long Island near New York City as a brush fire spanning several kilometres raged. Huge flames towered over a major local highway, terrifying motorists. At least 2 commercial structures were damaged. The fire is now 80% contained. Iran's supreme leader has rejected the idea of talks with the United States over limiting its missile range after President Donald Trump wrote him a letter. The supreme leader telling officials that a bullying government was persistent in its push. The White House says there are 2 options for handling Iran, militarily or through a deal. North Korea has unveiled what appears to be a nuclear-powered submarine under construction. State media releasing these photographs as leader Kim Jong-un visited a major shipyard where warships are built. South Korea's impeached president has been released from prison, waving and bowing to his supporters as he left. A court had cancelled Yoon Suk-yeol's arrest warrant a day earlier, but his criminal and impeachment trials will continue. Yoon was arrested in January after attempting to declare martial law in December. Next in 9 News, new information on Queensland's flooding disaster. Alfred's aftermath forces residents into lockdown. We'll get the latest live from Ali Petrowski. A robber's bizarre break-in. You won't believe why he kicked his way into this shop. The clock was ticking. A protester's 16-hour sit-in atop a London landmark. See how it ends next. And AI set to supercharge Telstra's 5G network to 6G. What it means for your mobile coverage. More now on Brisbane's flood emergency unfolding as we go to air. Let's go live to 9's Alison Petrowski, who's in the city's south. Ali, all eyes are on that rising creek at Greenslopes.
Yeah, we're just about 5 kilometres south of Brisbane CBD, Pete, and this raging river has formed. This is normally a park, but a river has overtaken it. A really small creek, and I'm talking very small, Pete, has completely overflowed, and this is flash flooding in action. And lots of locals coming out wanting to have a look at the rampaging river that has popped up in their suburb. This is really, really close, Pete, to houses as well, so I imagine that a lot of people here would be quite nervous if this gets any higher. It has crept up a little higher in the last 25 minutes that I last spoke to you. But look, Pete, some good news for Queensland parents this evening. The kids were off school Thursday and Friday in the lead up to Alfred, and the Queensland government has announced that schools here can reopen tomorrow, so parents that have cabin fever will be breathing a sigh of relief, Pete.
OK, Ali, thank you so much. A man will be extradited to New South Wales after he was arrested for allegedly breaking into a pie shop, stealing a police car and assaulting an officer near the ACT border on Friday. Police were attempting to arrest the 24-year-old at Bungendore when he allegedly punched an officer in the head before stealing the car. One constable shot at the passenger door as he drove away before the vehicle was eventually dumped at Fyshwick. The man was arrested today in Canberra and will face court tomorrow. A brazen, bizarre theft in the middle of the cyclone emergency. An intruder breaking into a gelato shop on the Gold Coast as most people took shelter. The thief made off with 2 bottles of alcohol, but not before sampling something a little sweeter. The 40-year-old man didn't have much time to savour the flavours, though. He was arrested about an hour later. Australia's 5G network is getting an AI overhaul as Telstra lays the groundwork for a future 6G. Soon text messages will work in every corner of the country, thanks to deals with Elon Musk's Starlink.
Armed with a 4-year plan and $800 million to spend, Telstra is upgrading the brain within every one of its mobile towers.
We're going to make our 5G network the most advanced, the most reliable and resilient in the country.
The telco claims speeds will improve first. Soon after, artificial intelligence, which will help Telstra predict and improve connections for customers when they need it and lay the foundation for the arrival of 6G.
Just like 4G got better over time, 5G will get better, faster, more efficient, and so we can expect better things from the existing networks as they get ready for the next thing.
6G isn't expected until about 2030. How fast it will be and the standard it has to meet is still being discussed by world leaders. In planning for the future, the government will draw on lessons from the experience of the 3G switchover, said Australia's Communications Minister. The government and industry will continue to work collaboratively to protect the public interest.
You'll see robots talking to other robots and talking to vehicles and wearables. It's going to be immersive.
Good news is you won't have to wait for 6G to be able to send a text from anywhere in Australia. Right now, there's a big black spot in the centre of our country, but telcos are already signing deals with satellite company Starlink so that one day soon you'll be able to receive a call or an SMS from anywhere you can see the sky.
We will see, probably within 2 years, satellite communication working on our existing mobile phones anywhere in Australia, and that's the big next step.
That's a game changer, and this is all part of this future investment.
Mark Santomartino, 9 News.
After nearly 40 years on the run, a Puerto Rican prison escapee has been arrested in the United States. The man was tracked down in Florida thanks to fingerprints taken in 1986.
You got a warrant for your arrest out of Puerto Rico for escaping a prison down there, okay?
Yeah, but they told me they don't want me about 2 times.
Now they do.
His criminal history includes robbery and aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Pulled from the depths of a US river, this car could help solve a 67-year-long mystery. Officials believe it belongs to an Oregon family of 5 who disappeared in 1958, with the bodies of 2 of the children found floating further down the river months later. The car was found by a diver who spent 7 years looking for it. A lone protester has brought part of central London to a standstill after climbing Elizabeth Tower, which houses Big Ben. The barefoot man scaled the structure with a Palestinian flag, authorities closing Westminster Bridge and nearby streets as negotiators tried to coax him down. He was eventually brought down by a cherry picker. Well, a grandmother is recovering tonight after she was bitten by a carpet snake in the state's central west. The non-venomous reptile latched onto the woman's arm on her Cobar property. The 88-year-old then walked 100 metres with the snake still attached before receiving help from a family member. The woman was treated for wounds to her hand. The snake was safely released back into the bush. She is brave. Ahead in 9 News, a life-changing new drug treating a crippling eye condition that causes vision loss. The fondest of farewells for 2 Taronga Zoo elephants. We'll tell you who is moving in. Those stories after sport with James, where the road trip to Melbourne is always a very tough one in the NRL.
Good evening to you, Pete. The toughest, and the Eels were reminded of that in cruel fashion this afternoon as the Storm Stars put on a clinic. The Jason Ryles era at Parramatta off to a rough start. Wade, last battered and badly bruised, the Bulldog, who could still see the funny side of a nasty knock.
And there's no sign of cooler autumn temperatures just yet, with some very hot and summery conditions on the way. I'll have your full forecast soon.
Our AI future is here.
We're just walking through the virtual space now.
The new skills, the new jobs.
There's been a huge change to the workforce as technologies advance.
How artificial intelligence can boost your career.
Go and learn about it. Don't be scared of it.
9 News, your news, tomorrow at 6.
Coaching in the NRL is a brutal business. Just ask Jason Ryles, whose Eels were today thrashed 56-18 by the Storm. Craig Bellamy showing his former assistant how it's done in a disastrous debut. Melbourne making it 23 straight round 1 wins.
A new Eels era headed by a new head coach. Jason Ryles facing his former club, whose flashy fullback was cooking up a storm.
Oh, Pappenhausen, delightful, and that's a try, knocked down by Parramatta, and Pappy pounces.
Parramatta's soft centre was quickly exposed.
Again, oh, a front rower goes over untouched.
Melbourne, the kings of round 1 wins. Xavier Coates, the finest of NRL flyers.
Oh, he pulled off the try of the year last year at Amy Park, and this one's pretty handy as well.
Melbourne on a mission, mauling an Eels side desperately missing Mitch Moses.
This is awesome footy. They are standing at Amy Park for their Melbourne Storm.
Ryles' first half in the NRL coaching cauldron, 40 minutes to forget.
Beautifully designed, and Pappy scores.
The Storm hit 50 when winger Will Warbrick pounced on a pass and streaked away.
And it's a try in game number 50 for the Kiwi.
Last year's runners-up toying with their opponents. Jerome Hughes running off Jack Howarth's right hip, earning the 2024 Dahlia medalist an early mark. It was a long day for Zach Lomax at his new club. Fellow new face, Isaiah Iongi crossing off a pass from in-demand half, Dylan Brown.
Iongi slices through.
A 56-18 scoreline, leaving Parramatta's new boss with plenty to ponder.
We've had a lot of change and a lot of change in personnel. The program's changed, and then I've tried to change a lot of things that we're doing on the field, so it's going to take time. We've still got a way to go in regards to where we want to get to.
Zach Bailey, 9 News.
Tom Trbojevic has had his best pre-season in years, and it showed in Manly's thumping first-up win over the Cowboys. Turbo's performance giving fans hope this could be the year his luck finally turns and stays fit enough to recapture his brilliant best.
This year was probably one of the only years that I got to finish the year fit for a while, so I felt really good coming into pre-season. I didn't put a performance in like that.
I think he got a lot of confidence out of playing for Australia. It was the first time he's played for the Kangaroos.
Something we should be proud of, but ultimately that's the foundation and that's the standard we want to set for ourselves.
It's only round 1, our challenge has been consistent. That's what we've got to work on.
Consistency is a challenge for many clubs. Canterbury looked to be cruising at Cogra before letting the Dragons back into the game. The Bulldogs eventually holding on for a 28-20 victory.
We've got the 28-6 there, and we're pretty happy with what we've done thus far there. But it was good we had to win it again in the last 20 minutes of the game, and I thought it showed a lot of bravery.
We just turned the ball over. When we get field position and we can play footy, we can score tries, but when you turn the footy over and have errors like that today, 68% completion rate, you're not going to win.
Dog skipper Stephen Crichton escaped with a fine for using his knees in a tackle, while Kurt Mann picked up a shiner, stopping a try.
He's got clipped on the way past. Not as bad as it looks like.
That's good for Kurt, because this is what it looks like today. Luke Dovesey, 9 News.
Well, the Roosters know they've already been written off as a premiership contender after being thumped by the Broncos 50-14 in their season opener.
People will put us down and people will say our season's over, and that's okay. People are entitled to their opinions, but for us, there's beauty in that, bunkering down, staying together, and what better opportunity than to go out and play against one of the best teams in the competition.
Victor Radley will miss Friday's showdown against the Panthers after being KO'd, but in positive news, he was back on light duties at training today. The Giants have started the AFL season in impressive fashion, thrashing Collingwood in their opening round clash at Sydney Olympic Park. The spoils were shared, 5 GWS players kicking 2 goals each in the 104-52 win. There was concern for Kieran Briggs, taken to hospital after hurting his neck in a clash with teammate Sam Taylor. The ruckman, well enough though to be upright and watching the game from his bed on the ward. Waratahs coach Dan McKellar believes his side is showing glimpses of their glory days. New South Wales defeating the Force 34-10, starting the season with 3 straight wins for the first time since 2009.
We managed to scrape through and win a couple of games to start with, and then tonight encouraging that we started to play a little bit of rugby, and that's the Waratahs. That's how the Waratahs have played for 100 years.
Next up for the Tars, a derby with the Reds, who McKellar says are the best team in Super Rugby at the moment. A scare for Liverpool, who fell behind to last place Southampton in their Premier League clash. But the Reds showed their class in the second half, scoring 3 goals for a comfortable win, extending their lead on top of the ladder to 16 points. 4-time defending champions Manchester City are battling just to stay in the top 4. They lost 1-0 to Nottingham Forest, who sit third. Jason Day is in contention for his first PGA Tour win in almost 2 years. The Australian is 4th, just 3 shots behind outright leader Colin Morikawa after firing a 3-under par 69 in the third round at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Unheralded Aussie Carl Phillips is closing in on his maiden win. The 23-year-old Tour rookie holds a 1-shot lead heading into the final round of the Puerto Rico Open. Another medal for Australia on the slopes of Europe. Adam Lambert with his first podium finish of the season in the Snowboard Cross World Cup event in Georgia. The 27-year-old avoiding a nasty crash in the dying stages of the final, comes second, claiming the 4th medal of his career. And rally driving great Sebastian Loeb has made it a clean sweep in Sydney's Race of Champions. The Frenchman defeating supercar star Chaz Mostert in the final on the temporary track set up at Accor Stadium. He's become just the first driver in the event's 33-year history to win both the team and individual titles at the same event. A very cool concept, as is rugby league. Great to have the first round under the belt. Pete?
Good on you, James. I'll see you tomorrow, my friend. Next in the news, breaking news on a major flood warning for the northern rivers. Plus, the new drug tipped to improve the eyesight of tens of thousands of Australians. Great balls of fire shooting across our night sky. We'll explain it all for you shortly. And Taronga Zoo left with no elephants for the first time in a century. We'll tell you why and who is replacing them. As we come back to you, we have breaking news with a major flood warning now in place at Grafton. The Clarence River is currently at 5.5 metres, 15 centimetres above the major flood level. It is predicted to reach 5.8 metres overnight with more rain on the way. A life-changing new drug is now available for elderly Australians suffering from a crippling eye condition. Retinal vein occlusion causes vision loss and can't be cured, but it's hoped the treatment will improve sight for tens of thousands of patients.
A needle to the eye would make most people squirm, and Sushil Pillai is no different.
I was very, very apprehensive when they told me they were going to put an injection in my eye.
But for 3 years, that's exactly what has allowed the 60-year-old from Sydney's inner west to see again.
The vision in my right eye was blurry, you couldn't focus on things.
He was diagnosed with the debilitating condition, retinal vein occlusion, a blockage that causes fluid to build up in the eye. It can lead to vision loss, blurred eyesight and colour distortion, making daily tasks challenging.
It can impact their ability to read. It can impact ability to hold a driving licence.
The first injectable eye treatment, Vabysmo, works to stop the blockage.
You can see how With regular therapy, we've been able to clear this fluid.
It has only been available through a clinical trial until now. The federal government adding the drug to the PBS, slashing the cost from $934 a course to $7.70 for pensioners and concession card holders, and around $31 for general patients.
This new drug is not only highly effective, more effective than some of the others on the market right now, there's also the possibility of longer intervals between injections.
This is a major step forward compared to treatments that we've had previously.
Sushal's life transformed, and now a chance for many more to benefit. Claudia Vrdoljak, 9 News.
There's been a grand celebration, yes, I said it, to farewell Taronga Zoo's 2 Asian elephants. Buddhist monks blessing the 2 animals who will soon begin their great migration to the Monato Safari Park in South Australia.
And while the transition it is bittersweet for the Taronga community, it also presents an incredible opportunity for Pak Bung and for Tang Mo to form new bonds with 2 other Asian elephant females from Perth and Auckland, living as part of a matriarchal herd.
When they depart later this month, it will be the first time Taronga has been without elephants for more than a century. But new residents, including water buffalo and a rhinoceros, will soon be moving in. A slow-moving fireball has been spotted tearing across the night sky. Onlookers in New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania have posted videos of the space junk appearing at around 10 last night.
It can't be a plane! I'm recording! Oh my God! No, it's a friggin' meteorite shower!
The Australian Space Agency is investigating where it came from. Coming up in our news, Amber with the weather.
Thanks, Pete. Tonight will be mostly clear with a slight chance of a shower. Right now, it's 24 degrees outside. I'll have your full forecast in just a moment. It was a partly cloudy day with a few sprinkles of rain in some suburbs as well as sunny breaks and a moderate to gusty northeasterly breeze picking up this afternoon. After a warm and humid night, it reached a top of 27 degrees in Gosford and Terry Hills, 28 in Penrith, Kellyville, Parramatta and the City, a warmer 29 in Blacktown, Liverpool and Campbelltown. We have seen heavy rain across the northeast today with several areas in the Tweed, Brunswick area as well as the Coffs Harbour region receiving more than 100 millimetres in 24 hours. Mullumbimby drenched with 144 millimetres, while Dorrigo picked up 104. Along the coast, Wollongong, Coffs Harbour and Grafton reached a top of 24 degrees today, 25 in Newcastle and Batemans Bay. Tomorrow, remnants of Alfred will combine with unstable air to generate more showers and storms over eastern parts of New South Wales and Queensland. Brisbane will start to see those showers easing tomorrow, 27 degrees, a possible shower on the way for Canberra with a top of 30 and a warm day for Melbourne, heading for a top of 34. We're expecting light showers across most of New South Wales tomorrow with more heavy falls of 25 to more than 100 millimetres in parts of the northeast corner, heaviest around the Queensland border. Heading for tops in the mid to high 30s along the coast and that hot weather sticking around in the far west. Let's take a look at Sydney. It will be cloudy tomorrow. There is a 50% chance of showers from mid-morning, but most likely in the evening with light to moderate northeasterlies. If that rain arrives, we're only expecting 1 or 2 millimetres in the city and just a millimetre, if anything, in our west. Heading for 27 degrees in Kellyville, Blacktown and the City, and 28 on the way for Penrith, Liverpool and for Campbelltown. Looking ahead, we will see a few showers on Tuesday. That could bring anything from 1 to 20 millimetres of rain with a top of 25 degrees. Wednesday should be mostly dry, just a shower or two, a top of 27. And then we're in for a run of summery weather. Blue skies and 30 degrees on Thursday. A few clouds around on Friday, 28. Then the weekend is looking hot and sunny, a top of 30 on Saturday, 34 on Sunday. In our west, we'll see some showers on Tuesday with a top of 26 degrees. Just a light shower or two on Wednesday, 29. A hot day on Thursday, sunny and 34. Partly cloudy and 31 on Friday. And at this stage, next weekend is looking like a scorcher. Sunny with tops of 35 to 38 degrees, Pete. And
we'll see you for the late news at 9:50. Thank you, Amber. Before we go, here's a quick look at what's in store on tonight's edition of 60 Minutes.
Thanks, Pete. Tonight, The level of depravity.
Horror at Harrods.
It made me feel cheap.
Mohammed Al Fayed owned the world's most prestigious store.
Whatever Mohammed Al Fayed wanted, he got.
He pretended to be respectable.
Hands everywhere.
But he was really a predator.
Tried to kiss me even on the mouth. He was an animal.
Now his Australian victims expose his filthy secrets.
Behind those doors, he was a monster.
That's tonight after Married. Back to you, Pete.
Thank you, Tara. That is 9 News for this Sunday. I'm Peter Overton. I hope you have a good evening from all of us. Good night.